Darn it! I said no word again. We just got demonetized. Oh no! What are we
Oh
gonna
no,
do?
Carson, we don't even have ads, and you already got us demonetized. How the fuck do you do that?
Darn it! I got us banned off of TikTok within one word. I can't believe it.
We haven't even started the episode or even figured out if this is gonna keep going, and you already got us demonetized, banned. We're actually on the FBI's most wanted list already.
Public enemy number one. What'd you do? I said a really bad word on the podcast. It's like that meme. You know the meme when the boys group chat gets leaked. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this is that moment for
The
us.
the boys,
Everything gets
the
leaked.
what happens when the boys decide that they want to start a podcast like all other like straight white men want to do, except we're not going to be toxic masculine dicks most of the time. Sometimes we will be.
We'll be cruel to each other. I promise.
Yeah, we'll be cruel masculine dickholes to each other, but in grandest terms we love each other, you know.
Yeah, that's what you want to call it. Sure, love. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
More
yeah. I
more like
know. I
a.
know.
This is more like an acquaintance type thing going on here.
Oh,
Honestly,
okay. We've been best friends since high school, but we're just acquaintances. Okay.
no,
Okay.
honestly,
I see
this
how
is
it
just
is.
a means to an end. You know,
Oh, so okay.
this is
So you're just doing this to get really famous and then leave me in a really big
this is
controversy one day to try and make it on your own, fall flat, become homeless, become a drug addict, just like all good performances are.
this is my my stepping stone to stardom. All good
Okay,
things, I
okay. This is
promise.
how you make it in Hollywood. Understood, understood.
But with that being said, Brandon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the first ever episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I'm one of your hosts this evening, Carson, aka Juggernaut, with.
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
And today we are talking about the current state of Marvel or the MCU and a little bit of a review for Captain America Brave New World. Brandon, Booby, baby, my brother, how we feeling?
You know, it's been a day. It's been a day. I won't get too much into it, but some shit happened at work. It's been an interesting day. It's been an interesting honestly past few months. I'm not going to say what I do for a living. But there's let's just give it I can give a hint. There's some certain industries that are getting hit really hard right now, and I'm unfortunately in one of them. So it's been an interesting few weeks. But you know, we're here. We're recording a goddamn podcast. So what can I really
Making it
it's a
happen.
Friday. It's a Friday, you know. Next episode of Solo Leveling comes out. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's we're here. We're out here. How you doing?
I'm good, man. You know, today was a little difficult. Schoolwork and everything, spring break next week, so you're trying to get everything done and get everything together. But you know, I'm excited to be doing this. You know, this has been a passion project for I think the both of us for a long time now. I think we both have like wanted to do this. We wanted to get our thoughts out there. We wanted to talk about all things nerdy for
Wow.
quite. We've wanted to do this for quite a long time. And I think getting to do it with each other too is also just such a special thing for us both to do.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I could not agree more.
yeah. But with that being said, what you been watching? What you been consuming recently?
So, and of course, right as we start, my cat's gonna make an appearance. First
Of
ever appearance on the
course.
podcast. We're gonna give her a little pet, and we're gonna put her down. Say hi to the camera, and she's gonna eat me, and you're gonna go away.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do I start? So a little bit of a peek behind the scenes. This is planning on going up on Sundays, and we're recording on Friday. So that's gonna throw a little bit of what we talk about. So like one of the things I've been like consuming this week, or honestly for the past few weeks, solo leveling. As you can tell, I'm an anime fan. I'm a fan of a few things, but I'm an anime fan. And Solo Leveling is one of the hot new animes going on right now. And this episode this week, I want you to watch this. A little hint: Carson does not really watch anime. We'll talk a little bit more. There's a little asterisk with that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Carson doesn't watch a ton of anime, so I'm not. But I do want you to watch this one. I've been telling you this since MegaCon.
Yes, you
Um,
have. Yes, you
I want
have.
you to watch this one. So I'm not going to try to get too into spoilers. But it's really funny because I love this episode. I watched this with another friend of mine weekly, and he was not a big fan of this because one of the big things about this show is it's just beautiful action. People call it
Mhm,
aura farming, whatever you want to call it. But this was like no action. It was just
mhm.
storytelling. It was just character building. And I love that, honestly. Like, I feel like
Sure.
sometimes
Yeah.
you need a break from the action. Like, if you get what I'm
Mhm.
saying, like,
No, I
again,
completely get
try
it.
not to
Yeah.
get too into spoilers, both for you and for people who haven't watched it yet. But he's been building up to something. This is
Mhm.
we're almost at the end of season 2. I think we have 3 more episodes left of season 2. And really, since season 1, he's been building to this. And it finally happens. And it is just such a good moment. It's so emotional, it's so meaningful. And
You're
I
trying
think
you're trying
I'm trying
so
so hard
hard
not to
not
spoil.
to.
I'm trying so hard, but it's so no, but like genuinely, it's so emotional.
Mhm,
I watched this. I'm weird, so I watch dub mostly, but I want to watch this weekly, so I'm watching it subbed as it comes out, and then I go back after they release the dubbed episode, and I watch that the next week. So I watch it
yeah.
typically twice,
Mhm.
and I will say, like, it's given me an appreciation for both sides of like because both voice actors give the character such a different like feeling and like obviously it's the
Yeah.
same character so they're going to feel generally the same but hearing it in Japanese and hearing it in English it does feel like a slightly different experience and again when you're hit with that emotions I'm really curious to see what Alex Lee who's the English voice
Mhm,
actor for Sung Jin
mhm.
Woo the main character does with this performance because he's killed it. I mean, he's done phenomenal. And again, just I hope he captures that emotion. But we're building up to something huge. With this next episode. I think this next episode is probably going to be a lot more action. I mean, I know it's going to be a lot more action. It's building to the precipice of this season. So yeah, again, I could talk for a lot longer, but in lieu of talking about the other things that I've been consuming, so another thing is I've been reading a web novel. I'm
Mhm.
gonna butcher the name of it just because I thought it was something different until I had to look up how to pronounce it. But it's Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is what it's called, and it is getting adapted into an anime. We have no idea when or what it's going to look like. But
Sure.
it's a web novel, so comic books, obviously. You know what
Right.
that is,
Right.
and manga is basically just the Japanese version of that. There's
Okay.
nuanced differences. The biggest one is instead of reading right to left, you read left to right. Or like you read the opposite way
Okay.
so with us, you start here and you go there. With them, you go here and go there.
Is there a
Um,
specific reason why that is? Like, did they ever explain that, or is that just how it is type thing?
so I'm gonna be totally honest. I want to look into that because I don't have an answer for you. Um, it doesn't really make a huge difference once you get used to it. In terms of like reading, again, you're just going a different direction. You're getting the story the same exact way. Um,
Sure.
I will say though, and the reason I bring that up is because with the web novel, you're scrolling.
Mm.
So, you know how like you scroll through Instagram reels and stuff like that?
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah,
reading
yeah.
it on a continuous just sheet of paper on your phone. And
Gotcha.
what that allows you is, like splash pages on a comic book,
Yeah.
like how it's just the whole page or 2 pages or something like that.
Mhm.
This allows you to do something really interesting where you just keep scrolling and it's one continuous scene. Now, they don't always do that. They
Mhm.
do break it up and things like that, but it does something super interesting. Obviously, seasoned web novel readers, you're gonna know that. I only
Mhm.
bring that up because Carson doesn't really know much about this type of stuff.
I'm learning.
So just interesting to talk about. But anyways, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is a story about a guy who is the only reader of this web novel. It's kind of meta in that way, where you're reading a web novel about a guy who read a web novel. Um,
Yeah.
but he is the only guy who reads. It's over 3,000 chapter web novel. And I should preface, I'm about chapter 35 of this current web novel, where I'm at right now. But yeah, so the one he's reading is like over 3,000 chapters. He's been reading it since I think he was like freaking 9 years old. I can't remember. They say it's somewhere in there. He's been reading it forever. And one day he's going home from work. He has a shit job, doesn't really enjoy it. And he's going home. He's on I can't remember if he's going home or going to, but he's on the metro, either to or from work. And he, all of a sudden, the final chapter of the web novel releases. He reads the final chapter, and all it basically says is like, thank you for reading. Like, we don't really see an ending. So we don't know a ton about this story because it all happens very quickly. And then the metro stops and the lights go dark. Again, I'm kind of summarizing, but
Sure.
yeah. But then this creature arrives, and it basically like says, "Hey, your free subscription has ended. Time to pay." And that's where I'm going to end with like kind of giving a play-by-play. Essentially, the story is the web novel that he was reading is about the apocalypse. It's about the end of the world, and the actions of that web novel start coming to life. And there's these beings called constellations who are basically sponsoring people so that they don't die. They're basically like gods. That's all we really know them as. So there's basically these gods that are sponsoring people to not die during the apocalypse based on how much they like them or not. And they have to go through challenges that win them coins. And it's super interesting. I've never really read anything like it because it's kind of like an isekai in the sense of he's not really going to another world, but it's changing his current world. Again, I'm super early in, but it is brutal. It is gruesome. The first challenge is literally you have to kill people in order to survive. There's a kid, and the main character like takes his kid under his wing. It's like, dude, it's good. And I'm curious to see how far I get by the time we get to next episode because I'm hooked. It's so good. But yeah, those are the main two. There's one other thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, that I am watching. You'll be excited.
Yeah.
But those are like the main things I've been doing. It's been a little bit slower week, just because work and things of that nature. But yeah, what have you been consuming? Tell me.
Yeah, so obviously we made history this week, all of us Marvel fans, with bringing back a very beloved show of Daredevil, or the Daredevil Netflix universe. I guess technically the whole thing's been revived, but we all
Yeah.
made history, and we were able to bring the show back. So in preparation for Daredevil Born Again, I sat down and rewatched the entirety of Daredevil seasons 1 through 3, The Defenders, and Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist season 1. Before you say anything, yes, I did sit through Iron Fist season 1 again. It was not fun. I'll talk
And
about that in a bit.
and I'll preface this. I'm a huge Marvel fan, but I am ashamed to admit it is like the only things the Netflix universe as a whole that I have not completed. I have watched basically season 1 of Daredevil, and that's it. I'll let you get back to it. I just wanted to preface that with my knowledge, which
Right.
is another reason why we're not going to get super big into spoilers, even for
Right.
previous seasons.
Mhm.
But yeah, take it away.
Yeah. So, just for context for me, Daredevil is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. It was also one of the first rated R shows, or TVMA shows, that I ever watched. It was that and Walking Dead. One's completely different from the other.
Yeah.
one, one,
Both funny enough, based on comic books.
yes, one based on comic books, but one of them specifically about a zombie apocalypse, the other about a blind lawyer superhero. Very different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um, but I have had a very big emotional attachment to that world and those characters, because of that. And I do also remember watching on TV when I was a kid, watching the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. I didn't necessarily grow up with that as much as I did X-Men, but
Mhm.
I unfortunately did partake in watching the Daredevil movie.
Did you watch the Elektra
um,
movie? I have not watched the Daredevil movie because I'm a Marvel fan who appreciates his time.
I'm looking for it. I have it on DVD somewhere in here. Hold on.
Oh my
Where do
god.
I have
So
so
the answer
much
is
stuff.
yes.
Yes, I have. Um, funny enough, I only have Elektra. I don't have Daredevil on DVD.
Oh,
But with
okay.
that being said, in preparation for Daredevil Born Again, which was probably my most anticipated thing of this year, maybe the only other thing rivaling it is Fantastic Four, maybe. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I sat down and I watched through the whole thing, probably what was probably 2 months. I didn't want to watch anything that took place after Daredevil. Like I didn't watch Jessica Jones season 2 or Luke Cage or Iron Fist. I even didn't watch the Punisher's in the show. I didn't end up watching Punisher, not because I didn't like
Hmm.
Punisher. I just was like, yeah, I'm
Didn't
okay.
feel needed.
I didn't feel needed. It's a Daredevil show. Punisher's in it. That's fine. But with that being said, Daredevil, my first, so watching that show for the first time kind of was like one of the first shows that opened up my mind as far as like, oh, this is what good television is. You know, when we're younger and we're kids and we're 11 or 10 years old, we think Good Luck Charlie's a masterpiece, or I think
Hey,
more.
don't go shitting on Good Luck Charlie.
I freaking love Good Luck Charlie. I don't talk anything bad about it. Uh, or I think more commonly for something like Lab Rats, we think, oh yeah, that's the peak. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I
No, that's peak. That's peak right there.
I loved Lab
But
Rats a
no.
lot.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Daredevil was mature and it felt grown up, and it was the first thing that I ever watched that made me think. That's the best way to say it. It made me think. It's the first show that had deep character motivations and a deep adult thinking, and so that's why like that was like such a big part of like my transition into like me being like a big mafia film person. Uh,
Hmm.
with how deep thought provoking those films are. Um, for those that don't know, because I probably should preface this, you probably know who Daredevil is, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Daredevil is a blind lawyer by day, and by night he is a superhero who uses echolocation to and a certain type of martial arts to take out all of his enemies. Or as my dad calls it, stupid. uh,
Your dad's a character himself.
oh, dude, I love my father. Oh, he's so funny. Um, and so by day he works at a law firm called Nelson and Murdoch. They mostly are little, more run down. They don't really have that many clients. And he works with his friends Karen Page and Foggy Nelson. But yeah, that's a pretty much a quick rundown of it. I think the biggest thing that Daredevil has going for it, though, and I will say this till the day I die. I even say it with Born Again from the 2 episodes that I've watched of it. It's the writing. Like each character, like, there's not one line in this show that I feel like isn't needed or is just there because they need to fill some time and whatnot. Every line is intentional. Every piece of dialogue is intentional, and it's so well written that you are immediately immersed and sucked into this world. Um, and it's not even just it's not even just the same thing for like the main characters. The minor characters all too have deep thought provoking scenes and dialogue and writing that inch the story along, and that's part of why you are encapsulated in this world and uh, 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 in this universe. Charlie Cox is just phenomenal as Daredevil. I'm so happy they brought him back. Um, the unique thing about him as
Imagine they
Daredevil.
didn't.
Oh,
Imagine they
dude.
tried to pretend it was Charlie Cox.
Oh,
Everyone else is the same. They just or Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. They just switch one of them out. Never
I
acknowledge it.
I would lose my mind and I would probably drop Marvel off in that moment. I genuinely would. That would have
Well,
been
because
the
Charlie
stupidest
Cox,
mistake.
he was in She-Hulk.
Mhm.
and he was in he voiced Daredevil in the Spider-Man
Right.
uh
Mhm.
the new TV series that I'm
Mm,
blanking on the name for some reason.
Friendly
Friendly
Neighborhood
Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
He
Mhm.
voiced Daredevil in like an episode in a line
Right.
in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, in that show.
It
So
was
yeah, he
like a
loves
few lines,
Daredevil
but he
and
voiced
he
him. Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the unique thing about him as an actor, and I haven't seen much of his other work, outside of Daredevil, but, like, he is just so naturally gifted at being able to connect with a scene partner without being able to look at them. So, for context, my main professional job is I'm an actor. So I've done a lot of, work and whatnot to harness my craft to become a better actor myself, and that's something that just impresses me because I don't know how he does it. Like, try
Yeah, because
holding a
doesn't he
conversation.
actually blindfold himself? Like he actually cannot see, right? When he's filming.
I think for, certain scenes he does, but, like, I'm referring to, like, when he just has
Okay.
the glasses on and he's just,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Matt Murdock just talking with somebody. It's just it's so incredible because I don't understand how he does it. Like, imagine having a
Yeah.
conversation with me and and just not looking at me, but you are actually, like, looking, like, you can actually
Yeah,
see.
you have to
It's
actually face you without like knowing that you're there. Yeah.
it's such a fascination to me. I don't know how he does it, but I friggin' love it. Um, and he's just he's so good in that role. Um, and he puts so much passion behind it. It really does come through on screen, and you see his love for the character too, because he also is a big fan of it too. Um, and then you let's talk about the king or kingpin of the show, Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. My God, dude, he so Vincent D'Onofrio, I've seen him in two other projects, Full Metal Jacket and Jurassic World, in which he ironically in Jurassic World he also played the bad guy, but it's so different than what he does in
Hmm.
Daredevil. Like even his voice, like it's up here, it's higher, and he talks more like down here in like a lower register, really being a big, bold boss kingpin. I don't know. That's my horrible impression of Kingpin, by the way. Apologies to all viewers and
Not
listeners.
terrible. Not terrible. Not terrible.
um, but it's so different than anything he's ever done, and he's so menacing. Like he walks
Hmm.
into a room and you feel the villainous presence of this character, and it's so his character is written in such a way that it's because of his intellect. Like they write him to be this very intellectual character. And so in every scene you see him one upping another person in the scene, or you see him outwit another person in the scene just through dialogue. And it is incredible. One of my favorite scenes with him, strangely enough, and it's such a small scene, but it's him making breakfast in the morning. This is in season 1. I think it's episode 8, but he's making breakfast in the
Hmm.
morning. It's got classical music in the background, and he's just getting ready for the day. But you notice throughout the entire scene the little uh, subtext, context clues that are like implanted in the scene purposefully to pretty much show you, like, yeah, he's a normal guy, but also like, look at that, he is not an okay person. There's like
Yeah.
minor things,
Yeah.
and I just think
Yeah.
that that's such clever storytelling and clever writing to bring uh something like that to life. And so Vincent D'Onofrio is he's so good in it, and I'm really upset he was never nominated for like an Emmy or a Golden Globe for this performance because he really is
Oh yeah.
phenomenal.
Marvel actors are always slept on.
Um, Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Wool as Foggy and Karen Page. Uh, they are the heart and soul of Daredevil. I think that's always
Hmm.
been a truth and a statement. Like that, they are the characters that keep that show grounded and keep it real, which I think is very hard to do
Yeah.
in a superhero project. And
The
so that's why I
human
really,
element to it.
yes, yes, the
Yeah.
human elements. And that's why I very much appreciate their presence being in this show. And they're also both very interesting characters. Karen is the further you get along. I don't actually know where you're even at in Daredevil. but
I don't
her
remember, admittedly.
yeah, fair enough.
Like I said, I think
Yeah,
the seasons are short, so I think I'm over halfway through season 1, and there's only, what, 3 seasons, right? Because this is technically
3
season
seasons
4.
technically.
Yeah.
Or Born Again is technically season 4.
Yeah, Born Again is,
Uh,
like, season 4, but kind of like a just its own thing, but, like, not like yeah.
right. Um, but as I said, Karen Page has a very interesting character arc throughout the entirety of season 1. Um, Foggy also has an arc. It's good, but he's really there. He's like the comic relief character mixed with a lot of heart, which I also do think is sometimes really hard to do with a character. Is how do we make this character the comic relief, but also give him a purpose that brings a lot of emotion and a lot of heart
Yeah.
um to this story. It's really, really hard to do that. And so I really appreciate them doing that. But they're both phenomenal characters. In season 1 specific, Ben Urich is a great character. He has a phenomenal arc. He's a journalist writer for the Bulletin. He's a really good character. I mean, they did a lot right with it. Um, and again, the writing is just phenomenal. But oh my god, dude, holy shit, the fight scenes, man. The the fight scenes are so well choreographed. Like
Mhm.
I Born Again's only had 2 episodes. And the thing that
Yeah.
I was concerned again about Daredevil Born Again, the thing I was concerned with was how well are they gonna be able to pull off these fight scenes? Because they had wonderful one takes of practical effects of Matt Murdock. He's not even in his Daredevil outfit yet, just beating the ever loving crap out of people, and it's so well choreographed and so well shot that I don't think there's any other superhero fight scene that honestly rivals it. I really don't. I would say the one exception is probably the anything Wolverine does. You know, I'm a Wolverine fan, so I'm always going to take Wolverine over everything else. Uh,
Mhm.
but I I don't know, man. It was my biggest fear with Born Again because they just did such a well job, a really really great job with making those fight scenes very intentional and also very very badass. Um,
Yeah.
and then this it kind of goes hand in hand with the cinematography of the show, the colors they use in each scene, or the way a scene is shot to show a character's emotional state. Um, they do a really good job with that. Um, and Yeah, I don't know who the cinematographer is. I was trying to look that up earlier because I wanted to talk about him a little bit, but he
Mhm.
does such a great job with bringing the cinematography to life for that show. Um, and so yeah, as I mentioned, I watched the other shows. I watched Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I liked Jessica Jones season 1. I thought it was great. There was actually a while I thought it might have been better than anything Daredevil ever did. And then I realized that's just my love for David Tennant. 'Cause he's in Jessica
I mean,
Jones, and I
yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard Jessica Jones is actually, like, not I don't know if it's better than Daredevil or at least on par, but I've heard it's one of the better
mm,
ones, for sure.
it's
Like,
it's
I
it's at
think it's
least better.
Daredevil, Punisher, and
Yeah.
Jessica Jones are, like, the top 3.
Yeah. It's at least better than Jessica Jones season 1 is at least better than potentially better than some of the seasons of Daredevil. I give it that.
Mhm.
It's that show in and of itself just has a really clever story, and then David Tennant as the villain, as Kilgrave, who's basically a villain who basically could say, "Hey, young man, kill yourself," and they'll just do it. Like
Yeah.
it's so well done. Um, and they did such a good job crafting that story that it genuinely it rivals Daredevil. Luke Cage is also fun. I enjoyed Luke Cage. It's not as good as I think Jessica Jones or Daredevil. I think the first season, like its first half, was pretty good, and then it kind of fell off about halfway through the show. I won't spoil where, but there was a very specific moment when I went, "Okay, where do we go from here?" And then it just doesn't. I'm like, "Oh, welp, I don't know what to do anymore." Um, but it's good. It's worth a watch. And then we get to Iron Fist, which
I'm
is
excited. I'm gonna watch.
Oh,
I'm gonna watch. Um, we have another show that I forgot to talk about that I am watching right now. We'll talk about that because I know you also watch it. So we'll talk about Invincible after you're
mhm.
done with this. But I have too many things that I'm watching and consuming right now. But I do want to get back, and that is one that I'm so curious what my thoughts are gonna be on, just because I know it is like universally like shit on all the time.
It's okay. It's not all bad. I can't honestly sit there and say
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
bad. Like, Colleen Wing's character is a very good character, and they wrote her very well. The issue is
Hmm.
Danny Rand's character is not written very well and is not good, and he's the lead of the show. And I told,
Yeah, that
one of
typically
my
hurts. That typically hurts your show a little bit.
I told one of our friends this, like, a week ago whenever I finished it, and I went, "You know what's really sad is that Iron Fist of all the characters, maybe not Daredevil, but of all the characters, Iron Fist is probably the more popular of the 4 Defenders, and he is the weakest character of the entire show. It just boggles my mind how bad they messed that up. It is mostly
Yeah.
just a writing thing. That's where they screwed everything
Hmm.
up a lot, was just in how they chose to write the dialogue for certain characters. Um, and so that's my biggest problem with Iron Fist. At the end of the day, I'll watch it if I'm rewatching the entire Netflix universe, but I would really rather skip it. I'm never just gonna like Daredevil. I'm never just gonna start watching it from the beginning and go through. Um, just as a show on its own, it's not very enticing
Yeah,
enough for me to
yeah.
do that. But then lastly, the Defenders, which is the Avengers team up or the Justice League team up of the Netflix Marvel universe, and
Just not as world ending
not
threats.
not as well. Well, kinda. Uh, that
Interest. I
that
mean, I don't spoil it because I want to watch it.
yeah,
But
I
interesting. I
I
didn't know
won't.
that. Okay.
It's kind of world ending, kind of not, and that's honestly my biggest problem with the Defenders. As much as I
Okay.
love that show and I love seeing all of them together, the plot of like what the villain's overall goal, I'm like, you don't need it to be that. It doesn't have to be world ending. Like, you're facing off against a blind guy with echolocation and a guy who's basically invincible.
Yeah.
Make it street level. You don't have to, and it kind of
Hmm.
is in some regard, but it's also not in another way. It That's the confusing thing
It's
about
Marvel. They
Defenders.
got to make it big. They got to make too big of stakes.
Well, and
And
I
we can talk about that. We can talk about that
yeah.
more when we talk about our state of the overall Marvel universe, because I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's an
yeah, yeah.
interesting like kind of thought process. Is I guess, have the stakes gotten too high? Are they like screwing it up? Like that
Right.
type of thing. But yeah, we'll
Right.
save that for a little bit later on in the podcast.
But Defenders in and of itself, as just as a whole, like, I enjoy it because I enjoy seeing all these characters interact. I enjoy seeing all the storylines come together. I don't think there's necessarily like this big emotional arc. I don't think, honestly, I don't even really think there's an arc for a lot of these characters beyond for a team up movie, you would think they're all on one goal, they're all on one mission, and they're not. They're all on their own goals. They just happen to be together. And that's kind of that's my biggest thing, is like, I didn't feel the sense of they needed to come together because they need to stop this. No, we are all going after our own goals. And it just happens that
Yeah.
we're all together. Which I don't know. Like, that idea makes sense. It was just the execution of how they did it. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I don't hate Defenders. I don't have anything bad to say really about it, but that is definitely one of those shows
One of
which
the
I'm like,
weaker.
yeah. Um, but yeah. Um, but with that being said, let's talk about Invincible, because we've got
Oh
a
yeah.
lot to
Oh yeah.
say.
I have admittedly, honestly, this could have been our topic for this week, to be honest
Oh,
with you, because I have so many thoughts about Invincible. We're both caught up. We've both seen
yes.
up till the most recent episode, which aired
Season 3
Wednesdays or Thursdays, I
Thursday.
think. Yeah,
Season 3
Thursdays.
episode 7 is what it should be.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
So, do you want to start off, since this is technically still you talking about what you've been watching, and then I'll just
yeah.
again, I
Yeah.
have so many thoughts, but I'll let you start.
I'll dive into this. So, I had a friend text me. I did not watch this last week's episode yet. I hadn't watched it. Sorry, let me back it up. Yesterday, I hadn't watched it yet, and I'm driving to go do something really quickly. And my friend texts me, "Hey, did you watch this episode this week?" And I go, "No, not yet. I'm about to when I get to the place I'm going to." And he goes, "It's peak. You're not mentally prepared." And I go, "What the frick? Don't text me that." Because now I'm gonna be expecting, like, what if I'm disappointed? What if this genuinely isn't that
Yeah,
great?
yeah.
And
Yeah, no, I
then
get it. It's setting expectations too high can definitely hurt something, which again we can talk about with Marvel. Like it's yeah, expect don't set your expectations too high. I get it.
5 minutes into the episode, I was hooked. This had to have been the most, gut-wrenching episode. I think the only one that rivals it is Omni-Man versus Invincible, the season 1
Yeah.
finale episode. I mean, first off, I did not
Well,
expect
and
this to be now. I expected all of the various, dimensioned Invincibles to be the finale of this show. So that, like, if this
honestly,
is where
yeah,
this
that
is
makes
now,
sense.
if this is where this is now, I'm really curious to see how they end this season. But they
Well, and I think we kind of got a hint with that with the way that this episode ended, which I
yeah.
think we should talk a little bit about non-spoiler, kind of like what we're doing, and then we'll give a
Yeah,
spoiler
yeah, yeah.
warning, and then we need to talk about spoilers for Invincible, especially since we both
Yeah.
watched it. And
Yeah.
most of my thoughts have to do with spoilers. But one thing that I will say, and this is like a pseudo spoiler, but not really, just to chime in, one
Mm,
thing that you had mentioned is about like the last time we felt like this with an episode is the
mm,
Omni-Man episode, like
mhm,
back in season
mhm.
one,
Yes.
which isn't it's literally like season or episode one, right? Is the Omni-Man episode? Like we just start out with that. Or
I was
is it not
referring
episode one of Invincible?
I was referring to the finale of season 1 with Omni-Man versus
Oh,
Invincible.
no, 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 you're right, you're right. So you're talking about the okay, yeah, 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 no, no.
Mm,
Yeah, no, you're right. Because that's what my point was. The stakes with this episode are astronomically higher. And like
yes.
you think, how can you raise the stakes and the devastation when you already had a gut-wrenching fight between
Uh,
Invincible and his dad? And I will say, I don't think it hits the same emotional beats necessary. I
no.
mean, there's one thing, and we'll talk about that. You probably know what I'm
Yes.
talking about,
I
where
know
you do
exactly
hit
what
that
you're talking about.
emotional beat, but
Mhm.
it's not as much, but the stakes are so much higher, so you still feel the weight of what's happening. And that's one of the things I
Yes.
love about Invincible is you feel the weight of what's happening every
Yes.
single action that's taken. It's not like in a Marvel movie when and I know I keep bringing up Marvel. I love Marvel. We'll talk about how much I love Marvel later, but I'm not trying to shit on them. But when aliens come down from space and they destroy New York, they destroy New York, you move on, life moves on. You never see it.
Yeah.
I mean, the most you see is the Sokovia Accords and what happens with Civil War. You don't
Yes. Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
feel the repercussions in this, dude. Again,
I
I'll try
I
not to
yeah.
spoil it, and we can talk about spoilers in a minute. But dude,
I had a thought about that because as I was driving over here to do the podcast, I had an actual thought about really the entirety of season 3 that kind of pertains to that. Um, so we'll get into that later. But no, like the catastrophic level that this episode
yeah,
leaves, like it is bad. And you see all of these people get affected by because of a choice that Mark basically made. Um, which
yeah.
I guess honestly, let's get into spoilers
I was
now.
gonna say, let's
Spoiler
just put the
warning.
spoiler tag on. We've
We
watched
should
the
have probably done
episode,
that at the
watch
beginning.
Invincible.
Oh
If you
man.
haven't, skip. I don't know how long. I guess. But
Yes.
yeah, guess.
Spoiler warnings for
um,
Invincible.
yeah. Spoiler warnings for Invincible.
But so many people die.
Dude,
And
hundreds of thousands.
so
And they said the number could be higher. They didn't even finish counting the death count. And they
so
already
many
said hundreds of
heroes.
thousands, and they said it could be 500. Yeah, heroes died, people died. I mean, you see that one scene, and I know this is towards the end, but it's like right at the end before what's his name? The guy with the gauntlet when I can't remember what his name is. But we've seen him
That's
before. We've seen him once
Thanos.
before. Yeah, we see Thanos. No, but when he comes down right before that scene, Mark is he's helping with the cleanup and he's looking at the
Mm,
devastation. And the shot is so expertly like I have a lot of problems with the animation in the season. We can talk about that. We cannot talk about that. I don't want to hate
yeah.
on like I don't like being a hater. But I do have some problems with this. But the framing of that shot with you see a
Mhm.
severed head of a lady and then Invincible being
Yeah.
crushed by the actions of what had happened there. It was just so
Yeah,
you feel the weight in that moment.
yeah. No,
It's not
that
just the
that was the
heroes, it's
moment
the
I cried.
people.
That was definitely the moment where I like lost it and cried, was that shot specifically, because I was like, good God, like that's just messed up. And going back to what I was saying about how the overarching thing of the season pertains to this, last week we got a wonderful episode with Breaking Bad actor Aaron Paul, which Breaking Bad being
Yep.
my favorite show of all time. I love that they included him in this show, and I freaking love Aaron Paul's performance in it. I thought he was so well done. But we had mentioned when we were talking to each other about that episode specifically, about how in a lot of ways, even though he's in a very antagonistic light, Powerplex isn't necessarily wrong. Like Invincible
Yeah,
needs to be held up for the actions
yeah.
that he's been given. And he
Well,
is
it's
ultimately
and
at the end of the day a threat, regardless of if he's fighting somebody who's bad. Like he's going to destroy so
yeah,
much. And this is what I was pertaining to the overarching thing. At the beginning of this season of season 3, we had the reveal that Cecil has been spying on Mark, and that he's been either bringing back to life certain heroes or people who may have been bad guys. He's now kind of like, hey,
I have so many thoughts on that.
come over here. And Cecil basically tells Mark, like, it's to protect all of us from you because of what you did and because of what your dad did. Like, yeah, you may not be your dad, but you very well could easily end up being him. And you are definitely very close to being as strong as him. And the catastrophic level that you
Hmm.
could bring in one fight is incredible. And that leads to the episode of Powerplex, where you see from not the non superhero side, just the people of the world, how they feel about it. And then you get to this episode now, in which there's a massive multiversal invincible attack, and the catastrophe, the sheer level of damage and hell that this brings for the entire world leaves everybody devastated. And that's why I'm really glad they actually included Powerplex in this episode.
Yeah,
Uh because he makes the comment of, this is what he does, this is what Invincible is, this is what he's always done. This is the absolute hell storm that he will bring by being here on this planet. Like, he's a threat regardless of if he's good or not. And honestly is why, honest to God, I love season 1. Season 3 might be my favorite season, depending on how they stick the landing. It might be purely for that notion of
yeah.
the repercussion of everything that came before. Um,
Yeah. Well, and
it's
I think
so
that's
well
something.
done.
Yeah, I think that's something that again, that's why I love Invincible so much. Is again, it you feel the weight of the actions of a superhero. I mean, if you had a Superman in real life, it's kind of like what the boys tried to do. And I haven't seen the boys, but I think one thing that has honestly kind of turned me off with the boys is this show is very gruesome, obviously, but it's animated. But the boys, from what I have seen, honestly, it feels a little excessive. Maybe it's just because it's reality, but it feels like it plays up the comedy a little bit more in the terms
Yes.
of the gruesomeness.
Yes.
This, the gruesomeness is used in a way to portray the gravity of a situation. And I think
Mhm.
one thing that this episode proves is, love him or hate him, Cecil's not wrong. And again, the complexity of the characters and the story that they're telling here is so interesting because, and this is another thing I wanted to point out, is when you were talking about Powerplex, it is both Invincible's action and inaction
Yeah.
that has consequences. I mean, one of the big things that honestly Invincible really like ticked me off this episode is his Cecil comes in when he's in with Eve, with Adam Eve, and it's
Mhm.
like, hey, your mom and brother are still out there. There are still Invincibles out there. And he literally screams at Cecil and says, I don't care. He says that doesn't matter. Boy, that's your mom. That's your brother. Yeah, your brother has powers and he can take care of himself, but that's your mom out there. And his inaction leads to now granted he's not going to be able to save everyone, and that's one thing that again this show does so
Right.
beautifully is you can save people but you can't save everyone. But again,
Yeah.
he doesn't even try. And again, I'm really frustrated with Mark as a person But him as a character is just so beautifully written because you have to think about it from his perspective in the sense of there's also someone he loves here that's dying. And now I controversial take. I think he freaked out a little bit too much. It was just a snapped leg. She'll be fine. But again, she was hurt, and it was because of him.
Right.
And it's because of his actions. And another thing that's so beautiful that we haven't touched on yet is the main villain and the main reason. Obviously, we have all the marks that are the villain, but the main
Yes.
villain of this is Mark. A big arc of his recent character is grappling with the fact that he killed someone. Turns out he didn't. And that's another thing that we don't really see him deal with, but we kind of do in the sense when he's flying with Adam Eve and he's like, there could only be this one person and I already killed him. And you can kind of see there's like relief and frustration in a way in his character
Mm.
in the sense of like, okay, good, I didn't actually kill someone, but because I didn't kill him, now hundreds of thousands of more people
All
are
of this
gonna
happened.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's like you cut to the end scene with Oliver when they're going through the portal
Yeah.
and his brother is screaming at him, kill him. He can't, so he can never do this again. You can see Mark was gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Like Mark was going to, in front of his brother, rip this dude's head off. You know, he doesn't
Yeah.
get the chance to, and I'm curious to see where that goes. But Mark
Yeah.
was going to kill him. And is that right? Is that wrong? Does this person deserve to live, even though they've killed, or at least their actions have led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of
Right.
people? And again, it's just, this is not a superhero story. I mean, it is, but it's a story of
No.
morality at an
Yes.
insane degree. It's a
Yes.
story of what makes a human told through a not human character in such a
Mhm.
unique way.
Well, and that's what what I was talking about with some friends a while ago about how, and I think the thing that I love about Invincible, and this more pertains to season 1 specifically. It does pertain to the rest of the show. They tell a very simple story in a very complex way.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
similar to Daredevil in a lot of ways. There's not one line in this show that I feel like is just there because they're filling or padding the runtime. It's
It's a
intentional.
dense show.
Everything
Yeah,
everything sets up something else. And I really do appreciate the world that Robert Kirkman and visual artist Ryan Otley were just able to come up with and bring. And then the actual showrunners just taking that material and being truthful to that. They could have just told another superhero story, or they, like the boys,
yeah.
could have leaned heavily into the gratuitous violence and language and I guess technically nudity and whatever. They could have leaned into all of that, but they didn't. They stayed truthful to the source material, and they stayed truthful to the story, allowing for the little moments, the subtle moments of character and richness to build, so that we can then have um these big epic moments with Mark against multiple Invincibles and Angstrom. Um which you're right, we didn't talk about the villain, but Angstrom's just there because he has a grudge against Mark. Like
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
so pissed that he
Well,
was
and again,
willing
it's through
to
Mark's
yeah.
own actions that kind of make him a villain to a degree. I mean, it's not all
Mhm.
Mark's fault, but if you think about it, to a degree, it kind of is. He creates Mark,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, creates his own villains, but in an interesting way. Where yeah, there are
Right.
some people who are just evil to be evil. I think one of those examples, and not to cut you off, but like one of those examples is
No,
Doc
go,
Seismic.
please.
Like Doc Seismic
Yeah.
he's a hilarious, like just kind of like shoehorned in there. Obviously, we got an episode with him recently that had like huge stakes and captures all the superheroes and things. Like that was an interesting episode, but that's not a really deep character in a way. He's kind of just there. And Mark
Right.
didn't really create Doc Seismic, but a lot of his other villains, it's again, it's through Mark's actions and inactions, like with
Yeah.
Powerplex, like with Angstrom Levy. He kind of creates them himself,
Yeah.
or at least perpetuates
Uh,
them.
yeah. And then obviously the big I would say what is the biggest twist of this this episode and this uh, gut punch moment is the death
You're
of
not, yeah,
Rex, which
dude.
I cried
Oh
during
my
that. And
god,
I
dude.
texted a mutual friend of ours afterwards, the same friend who texted me like, "Dude, it's peak. You're not mentally prepared." And I texted him with, "Bro, Rex went from the jerk to a hero, and then they took him away from us." I
Well,
knew it was
and
bad for Rex when they started giving him way too much screen time. I
I knew. I'll admit, I was still devastated by his death, but they unfortunately they do kind of do that thing that I feel like most stories do. And
Mhm,
again, this is based on it isn't just a TV series. Obviously, it's based on
mhm,
a comic book series. And I actually watched a video about the creation of this comic book series, dude. It's actually
mhm.
super interesting. Um, but yeah, that's one of the things. Like they did that thing that all stories do, where they started front loading. Like, oh, he even has a line where I haven't been this happy in like so long, and that's when I knew that I knew in my heart of hearts. I was
Oh.
like, Rex, don't say that, don't say that,
Don't say
man,
it, please. They're gonna kill
don't
you.
say the line.
It's Invincible. They have the
Well,
balls to kill you. They'll do it.
exactly. Well, because and that's one of the things that I'm gonna be honest. Like, and again, there is not a character in here that just isn't so beautifully written. In
Yeah.
Rex, I hated him in the beginning, and I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
hate him as a written character. Like he was
Mhm.
written beautifully, but he was written to be hated. Like, and that's how you know he's a well-written character. Is you hated him
Right.
because of his character, not because of the writing. At least for me.
Right.
And it's watching him grow and watching him take more initiative, take more leadership, finally be happy,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna tear up again because it was just such a beautiful ending to his character. Like to a degree, it felt abrupt, but a lot of the deaths feel abrupt, and I feel like it's kind of necessary because that's what's gonna happen. You're not always gonna have this huge build up, and oh my god, they're gonna
Mhm.
die immediate, like for like for like 15 episodes, but like it was like, oh, he's fighting another Mark replicant, and then boom, he's dead. He blows himself up. I
Yeah.
really hope he took out that
Oh.
Mark. He did. He has to like he. I hope he did. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
let's talk about that, by the way. That was the coolest way to go out, man. I would like I knew in some way he had a plan. I knew he was gonna do something. He grabs his rib cage and blows himself up. Like that's
Dude.
insane.
And the way that they reveal it, and he's reaching in, and you're kind of like, what's he doing? Like, I was watching Real Rejects. They were watching this, and they were talking about like, oh, is he gonna pull something out? Like, what's he gonna
Yeah,
do?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah. That's
and
what I
then they
thought.
reveal it in a way where my whole fucking skeleton or something along those lines, and he turns yellow. And
Oh,
that's when it sets in of, oh, he's gonna die. And you're
he's
like,
sacrificing
holy
himself.
shit.
Like I think we already knew at that point. Like he stayed behind. He was letting them get away. He was going to die regardless. I don't think
Yeah,
we
yeah,
expected
yeah.
him to do that.
No, no.
Not
And
at all.
it goes against when we see him in the beginning of the series. And again, that's why I
Right.
love his character development. And that is something that the original Rex never would have done. He
Yes.
would have been the first motherfucker out of there. Like he would have been
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's again what's so beautiful about his character arc. And God, I mean, they gave him so much screen time. You knew it was coming. It's like the walk. It's like The Walking Dead. Like The Walking Dead is so notorious, specifically in its later seasons.
Hmm.
But I'll go earlier. This is kind of spoilers for Walking Dead, but you'll forget about it by the time you get there. The character of Merle, who is Daryl Dixon's brother, a massive jerk in the beginning.
I've heard about this.
A massive jerk in the beginning. He's played by the same actor who played Yondu. Massive jerk in the beginning. He actually sides with the villain pretty much the entire third season.
I didn't know
Um,
Michael Rooker was in The Walking Dead.
yeah, he's in it. He's Daryl Dixon's brother. He does a good job.
Okay.
He plays a jerk in the first season. He basically plays a jerk he's a jerk the entire time, but he has a soft heart for his brother and he has a soft heart for people. And in the last like 5 episodes of season 3, he's on screen almost the entire time, and you go, "Oh man, Merle's gonna die." You know it's gonna happen. The same thing with there's a character in The Walking Dead called Henry in later seasons who like you build this whole character arc with him over what is 2 seasons, and he's there for so long. man, they're gonna kill him at the first chance they get. They're gonna kill him, and that's how I felt here with
Yeah.
Rex. Like they're building it up. They're gonna do it. They're gonna kill him some way. But the thing is, I didn't expect them to do it in the manner that they did. That he sacrificed himself so the others could get away in just such a really bad ass way. Like he blew himself up by blowing
they
up
gave
his
him
skeleton.
an ending worthy of Rex. They
Yeah.
really did, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But
that had to have been the gut punch of the episode. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I could talk about Invincible forever. But before we get into the main topics, we haven't even gotten into the main topic of the episode yet. We've both been watching One More Thing. They're separate things, and this takes us to the next segment of the podcast, and this is going to be a recurring segment. We're always going to talk about what we've been watching and consuming, but we have one more segment before we get into the main topic, and both of us are huge fans of things. Again, I'm a huge fan of anime, Star Wars, Marvel, pretty much. Like I'm a huge general nerd, and that's kind of the point of this podcast, is just huge nerds talking about what they love, but we're different types of nerds. And Carson, like I mentioned, he's not really an anime fan. And I'm a fan of everything, but I haven't seen and consumed everything. So there's things that we haven't watched. And what we've done is every time that one of us finished, so I don't know how to set this up, but essentially we've both given each other something. So whether that's in this every time we finish that thing, we're going to give each other the next thing. So it's either a show, book, like whatever it's gonna be. For me, that was Game of Thrones. So I've never seen Game of Thrones. I have started watching Game of Thrones, and I'll go ahead and say what actually I'll let Carson say what his is, and then I'll talk about Game of Thrones, and then you'll talk about your thing. But Carson, what did I give you? What because I'm watching Game of Thrones. That's mine. What did I give you?
You gave me One Piece.
So, okay, so let me preface this. Carson did not have to start with One Piece. I gave him solo leveling. I gave him other things. But as you might have noticed, as I've been drinking, One Piece is and this is not a stereotypical, this is a stereotypical thing to say, but One Piece is my favorite piece of media of all time. It really is. I watched the whole show in 2.5 months, which is insane. I watched it, honestly, more recently. I'm planning on, I've started reading the manga, not very far, I'm like a freaking 2 chapters in, but I love One Piece. It means so much to me, and so Carson, being the loving best friend that he is, decided that he could watch something shorter, but no, he wanted to watch One Piece. So,
sure. And I have heard a lot of good things about it. I think, okay, I guess I'll just start this off because I know.
Yeah, let's go. Since we talk about One Piece, I'll let you talk about One Piece, and then I'll talk about Game of Thrones. So let's start off. Where are you in One Piece?
Season 1, episode 30, I think.
Oh wow, you're a lot farther than okay.
Oh yeah, I over the past few days I just kept watching it, and I'll preface it with this. Going into the show, I obviously knew it was an anime. I knew it was very popular. I knew it was a ensemble character show for the most part. And I knew that it was about pirates, but that's it. I didn't really know anything about the show beyond that. And honestly, that's how I prefer.
Envy.
Well, and that's how I prefer media in general. Like it's really hard with Game of Thrones. When I watched that for the first time, I knew some things.
Yeah, and admittedly, I also know quite a bit about what happens in Game of Thrones. I don't like. I'll get into it. There's a lot of things that are a little shocking in the way that they're telling the story that I didn't know. But yeah, I envy you because I knew a few big beats about One Piece that you haven't even gotten to yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I envy that.
Be careful. Be very careful.
No, I will. I'm gonna shut up while you talk about One Piece. I'll chime in here or there, but I just want to hear you talk. I just want to hear you talk about One Piece. I love One Piece. Again, it means so much to me.
Yeah, no, it sucks. It's the worst piece of garbage I've ever seen in my whole life. No, I'm joking.
Well, okay. So I know you're joking. A lot of people feel that way about One Piece until they get. Some people say 200 episodes in. I think they're crazy. I think that they're like One Piece. Admittedly, you don't understand what, and this is kind of a spoiler, but not really. You don't understand what One Piece is until you get to a specific arc, and then your
Sure.
mind kind of, because you said season one anime, and again, this is one of your first anime, so I know anime kind of works in arcs, not necessarily
Yeah, yeah,
seasons.
yeah.
But once you get to a specific arc, that's when you kind of go, "Oh, this is so much deeper than I thought it was," and I can't wait
Right.
till you for you to get to that.
Right.
Again, not really spoiler. I won't say any more than that. But yeah, a lot of
Well,
people
yeah.
don't like it until they
Yeah.
get to that point. So I'm happy to hear that you're liking it in the 30 episodes. Yeah, I said I would shut up. I'll shut up.
We opened this can of worms, man. I know how excited I told you weeks ago that I started watching this and that
Yeah,
you were absolutely over the moon wanting to talk about this. I guess
yeah. We haven't
I'll
talked about
start off
any of
with
it.
like I'll start off with like the basic things and how I feel about it. I love the concept of it being pirates. It does feel like a very pirate-esque story in this world. I
Hmm.
love all the character designs. I love the animation. I think it's so well done. I think that
Oh, if you love
the
the animation,
artistic
wait till you get to the later seasons.
I think the artistic design of the whole show is really really good. Um, I love Usopp and Sanji's characters. So for reference for you, the last thing I just ended
Hmm.
with was Sanji defeating Captain Creel. Is it Creel?
Yes,
Craig?
yes.
Craig? I like a cat.
It's Krieg, I believe,
Krieg.
specifically. And I'm assuming you are, and you're watching in the English dub. So I know some of the
Yes.
character names are a little bit different between
Yes.
the sub and dub. So you're watching English, but
Yes.
if my memory serves, it's Krieg,
Which
Captain Krieg.
I'm watching it on Netflix, and the funniest thing is that I had to turn subtitles off even for the English because it doesn't match up. It doesn't align with
No,
the English
no. Well,
dialogue.
and again, that's one of the interesting things on why I feel like we should preface that you're watching the dub, because there are weird differences. It doesn't change
Mhm.
the story at all. It does change like moment to moment a little bit based on, because there's two different interpretation studios that do the subtitles and that do the dub.
Right. Right. But no, I love Usopp and I love Sanji's characters. I think they were both so well set up and they had such a great origin story, which was told over. I think Usopp's was like 9 episodes and Sanji's was like 10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't also like I also didn't expect Sanji's to be that long. I thought it was going to be like oh, he's here. All right, let's go in the boat. Let's go now. I wasn't expecting that. So I really appreciated that because that I will say that I get it. It's a long show and it builds over time. So far, that was one of my only complaints with it was I wish we had more development for other characters in the party. Like we do get
Mm-hmm.
development for Luffy, even though if it might not be my favorite development, and I know there's gonna be more later on. They just basically gave him the bare bones setup. You know why Luffy wants to be a pirate captain or the king of the pirates. You understand his motivation. Um, you understand Usopp's motivation. You understand Sanji's motivation, which that I had a gut punch I actually started to cry a little bit during that because they set up Sanji
I've
to be
cried
this.
so much during One Piece, dude.
Well,
Don't worry, I get it.
I wasn't even thinking about the fact of oh the head chef slash pirate guy that saved him from drowning is like a father figure to him and that he sacrificed his entire food ration for this kid who he didn't even have to. And I was like, that's sad, but that's so cool. And I love that Sanji's character choice is that he wants to stay in this boat because he does feel this allegiance and this like father like son type relationship with him. And it's really cool, really cool to see that develop. um, and then you have Usopp, which is the boy who cried wolf story. Um, he's already a pirate captain on the island, and he runs around shouting that there's pirates coming, and then you get to the day that there's actually pirates here.
And no one believes him.
Nobody believes him. What do you do? And they do such a good job showing Usopp's character, showing his love for this place that he has been in even though he does prank people by saying there's pirates here, that he does have a love for the people, and specifically his lady friend. What's her name again? Do you remember the lady friend?
Oh, I should. But I don't.
I can't remember her name.
It's it,
Sorry to all
there's
anime
so many
lovers.
characters in One Piece. There's so many characters. I know, and she is. I don't want to spoil, but like I should remember her name. I'll just say that. But yeah, I
Okay.
get it.
Well, there are some things in this show that like are memorable. That also like I can remember the entire main crew, their name, and I can remember there's one
Oh
character
yeah,
I
oh
can't
yeah. I
remember.
hope you do because you're stuck with them.
Well, and I do remember one character's name specifically that's not a part of the main crew, but I fucking hate with a burning
Oh,
passion. And
oh,
I'll get there. That's when I start talking about like really just like I understand why people might like this character, but it's a con for me. But Usopp's character arc was so well done. Writing, artistic shots, and the way they did everything was really good. So all three of those characters are good. Zoro's also very good. I just thought they did it too
hmm
late into the game. Like Zoro's thing that he had going for him was that he was really cool, and he was a really cool, talented swordsman. And then they gave him the backstory of being the greatest sword fighter. And I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. Where was this a while ago? I wish I would have had that for his character. So I was like, I wish they would have done that earlier, but I'm glad they have it now. It makes Zoro a very,
yeah.
very fun, and it makes him a very emotional character and add something to it. The only character who we haven't gotten anything for is Nami, at least yet. I know that we will eventually. I would
Yeah.
imagine within the next coming episodes, I will, because right now she's on the boat. She took the boat and the treasure and left, like a complete
That
jerk.
so this is kind of a spoiler, but you are correct. That is actually the next thing that you're going to
I
see.
figured. I
Is
figured.
yeah.
Which I'm fine with that. That's not necessarily a spoiler. You can tell me like if there's like an event like that happens. That's not a big deal. I figured that was going to happen at some point, but she's like the only character
Yeah,
right now who I
it's
haven't gotten
kind of
anything
obvious
for.
with knowing where you are. Yeah.
It's like that's the only character who I haven't gotten anything for, and it's just like it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like I care about these other characters. I really like. I know you because you're part of the main crew, and you like treasure.
So
You got to give me more
so
than that.
who's so it's Nami that's the character that annoys you. Is
No,
what you're saying? Oh,
no.
okay. Okay.
So we'll get
Okay.
into this.
I want
This
to
is
hear. I
my
want to hear this. Tell me who the
this is my
character.
biggest con, and it's Kobe, the worst character
Oh,
in my
oh,
entire. At least, like, here's the thing.
oh.
I hate him as a kid so much. He's so annoying. Like he just stands around. It's like in the first episode or whatever. He just screams his entire dialogue. Luffy does at times too, but at least there's a reason, and I can get by because it's every now and again. Kobe, like with every line, no, no, Luffy, no, no, wait, Luffy-san, please. I'm like, please, oh my god, just stop talking, kid. I literally wanted Luffy to just
Yeah.
sell him out to the Marines just so that he could die, because I don't ever want to see that character again. And I already know based on your reaction, I'm gonna see that character again, and I'm
I'm
really
not gonna spoil. I'm not okay. So I'm not gonna say absolutely anything. I'm not gonna say whether or not you see him again or whatever because I'm just gonna leave it at that. I will say though, I agree with you. Kobe was he is in the early episodes. He is like the most annoying character. Like
yeah.
like yeah. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to say anymore. But yes, you are.
Um,
I
yeah.
if you would have said Dami, I also admittedly would have agreed, but I feel like again, it's just because you don't really know a bunch about her. That's kind
I'm
of
not gonna
like
say
it's
Nami. The only thing I don't necessarily like about Nami's character, and I think this might go for all women in One Piece, or maybe just any anime that ever, is that they over sexualize her in some points, and
yeah,
I'm like, that's not needed. I don't care about that. Like
yeah,
you
it's
can have her flirt with people to get something or whatever or whatnot, but like, come on, man, I don't care about any of this. It kind of pulled me out of the world a little bit when that happened. That's honestly one of the biggest cons I think with the show. And again, I think that's just any Japanese manga or anime in general. I think a lot of them do it, so I can't really like frown against it because it's just a common thing that happens. But I just don't like that. I really don't.
so so I'm gonna go ahead and this is the only thing I will say that is kind of spoiler. First of all, I'll say it. I'm not gonna say it's all Japanese anime, and manga and whatever. It is an unfortunate problem. I do agree. Everyone likes hot women, at least. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just a thing. But I do agree that, especially in One Piece, and I will say, it is a very big problem that is admittedly annoying for the entire series. It is like
Mm.
I would say the only thing, I one of the major things that I feel like unfortunately carries through the entire series that I just don't like about One Piece. They do tell some interesting stories with it. I won't say anything about that, but it still just persists, and it is annoying. It is a problem with a lot of Japanese stories. I'm not going to blame Japan for that. America does it as well. We over-sexualize women. It is a genuine problem in media. But unfortunately, I understand where you're coming from with One Piece. I will just say, unfortunately, you are going to have to kind of get used to it, especially if you watch more anime
It's
and
fine.
with One Piece. But yeah.
It's something I kind of expected that would come along with it, just from things like I've heard and like the very few anime things that I have seen. I was like, this is probably going to be a thing, but it's fine. I just don't like it, but I can
Yeah.
bear through it. One of the this is not a pro or a con, because in a lot of ways I do think it is a hindrance, but also at the same time it's not, because it's very endearing as part of it. It's very 90s. And I know it's because it's created in the 90s. It was set in the 90s.
Because it came out in the 90s.
It
It
feels
is
very
still
90s.
ongoing, mind you.
Yeah, so I don't know if that ever shifts or changes to stop feeling like the 90s, but I kind of don't want it to, because now I'm like in this world and I've just gotten used to the
So
fact that it is very 90s, but like
it does and it doesn't. And again, this isn't a huge spoiler. The progression of what you're feeling right now in terms of feeling 90s and then not really, I feel like a lot of that has to do with the art style, I will say. And the art style does change. That's not a spoiler whatsoever. You might have seen a few things from things that are gonna happen. I mean, you saw some of the art that I bought at MegaCon that are what, like, they do change the art style, it does improve. But in terms of storytelling and things of that nature, it's interesting in the way, I will say, the way I'll put this without spoiling anything is you're watching the One Piece world mature with the characters.
okay,
And
sure.
I'll just, if that makes sense, I think that should make
No,
sense. I don't
that
want
makes
to say
perfect
anything
sense.
more, but
Yeah,
that's the only thing I'll say on that without giving away too much. Is a lot of it is you're watching that, like, that's a big
yeah,
part of the show.
right. No, and that's good to hear in some ways, because I do feel like as the show goes along, as you get more attached to these characters, like it's almost like the oh, what show is it? I'm trying to remember what show. Let's just use an example. There's like a show you grow up as a kid, and you go with it this entire way through. Oh, you know what? This is the best example. It's like the X-Men franchise with Wolverine. You grow up with
Hmm.
it as a kid. You watch the X-Men films. You watch Wolverine films, and then they're 18 or 20, whatever, by the time Logan comes out, and they can handle more of a mature theme. And yeah, it's a bittersweet ending to a character, and it's dark and it's gritty, and you definitely don't want to see your favorite hero down in the dumps like this. But it tells a much richer story, and it gives you
Yeah.
opportunities to mature and to grow. And so I'm glad that One Piece will eventually get kind of something like that. Because I will also say this, um, even though I do have some some pros and cons with it, I do like the show. Like I don't
Okay.
hate it by any means,
I'm
and I
glad. I'm
very much am
glad.
enjoying this. Like
Well, in
there's not one bit of me that goes, I really have to watch another episode, or I have to, just that sentence alone, I have to watch another episode. No, I am
mhm.
actually genuinely excited to see what they do with it and to see where they go. Um,
Yeah. I mean, and
so
I
yeah,
think again, when you're talking about a show that's over 1,000 episodes long, think of it in the sense of, like, Invincible is probably going to be, in my guess, probably about 5 seasons.
mhm.
Right now, you're still in like episode 2 of season 1 of Invincible.
Yeah,
Like, that is how unbelievably early you are in One Piece. And again, try not to spoil anything, but like, it is, you're in for a wild ride. And honestly, I'm happy that you just enjoy it, because again, there's a lot of people that hate it
right.
early on. Like, there really is. There's a lot of people that say, like, Moist Critical, it's one of my, I watch like every single video there is. He's a huge One Piece fan. He actually made an update video recently that he's like, oh yeah, One Piece is like one of the best pieces of media ever written. But he, up for like 400 episodes, hated One Piece. He like
Yeah.
he complained he couldn't get through it, whatever. And then now he's saying that it's like one of the best things ever made. And again, I'm excited to watch your journey, but I'm gonna use that as a segue, because another thing, the thing that I've been watching,
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm kind of there with you. So for Game of Thrones, again, I'm watching Game of Thrones. And so I'm 4 episodes in. I have not told you
Okay.
how far I am in. I'm 4
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
episodes in. The last thing that happened that I remember, and it's going to take me a while to remember character names. I remember actors, some actors, some characters. This is when um Peter Dinklage's character gets cornered in the bar. Like that's how the episode
Tyrion.
ends. And
Yeah.
Tyrion Lannister. It's Tyrion Lannister. Yeah, Tyrion Lannister gets cornered in the bar for crimes that he may or may not have committed. We don't technically know, kind of know what happened. But so that's where I'm at. But I originally I didn't think I was going to get even to episode 4. Not in the sense that I didn't
Mhm.
enjoy it. They're long episodes. I'm used to shorter episodes. I've
It's a
watched
long
some
show.
things. Each episode's over an hour long. But I
Mhm.
was watching, and I was kind of panicked last night. Admittedly, I'd only watched like 1 episode or like 2 episodes, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have a lot to talk about. And then I sat down and I just let it play. I watched like 3 episodes, and I think I don't like I said I think I'd only watched like 1 episode at that point, and then I watched like 3 episodes back to back. I was like 3
Oh,
hours of
yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
And what I'll say with the story is, in Game of Thrones is long over. Again, unfortunately, I do know some things. I'm not going to say what I know just for people who haven't watched Game of Thrones like me out there about what I know, but it's a lot of the big story beats that I know. I don't know the nitty gritty, and that's why I'm still having fun with the show. It does unfortunately feel a little bit like, oh, I know where this character's going. I know where this character's going. But
Sure.
I will say,
Like character endings? Is that what you're referring
so
to?
I
Like,
know
you know
some
where
character
characters
endings
end
and I
up?
know some big story beats. I'm not going to say what those
That's
are.
fine.
One
Okay.
of them has to do with a wedding. That yeah.
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 Oh!
I wish I didn't know about that because I know it's a big story beat.
Do you know
But
who's involved in the wedding, or is it just, like, the wedding?
somewhat,
Okay.
somewhat. I
Alright.
know what
Please go on.
happens, but I don't know the whole story. And again, so let me just get in because I don't want to talk about what's to come. I want to talk about what I've seen. So start with episode 1. It is a dense series. I kind of expected this, but I admittedly didn't realize how dense. And I guess it's because they're over an hour long. Each episode is.
Yeah.
There's so much, and you're telling multiple stories. It's an there's no main character. There kind of is not really. Like I can't even think of like if I were to think of the star of there isn't one. You're telling so many different stories, and you're switching between perspectives, you're switching between characters, you're getting they don't really set up the world in a way that I feel like a traditional show kind of does, where it's like episode 1, lore dump. This is the world, this is the setting, huge expedition. We're still finding out new things like 4 episodes in, and we're 4 hours into the show. Again, I've watched 2 movies worth of Game of Thrones, and I still barely know about half the shit that's happened in the world because it's such
Mhm.
you can tell they're setting up such an insanely epic adventure.
Yeah.
And I I'm trying to think because again, like so there's oh man, I'm not losing my train of thought. I'm just thinking so many different things at once because
Yeah, it
again,
makes
it's
me
so
do that.
dense.
Yeah.
But and also, admittedly, I struggle with the character names just because that's what happens when you're in a fantasy world. So you might need to help me out a little bit.
I'll help you out.
But I will say my favorite characters so far, and I feel like it's probably I already knew this would be one of my favorites, is Jon Snow.
John,
He
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's just because he's the outsider. He's the bastard. That's
Yeah.
his
He's a
whole
he
story.
the
He
lone
is
wolf, as you could say, I guess, in some sense.
exactly. And I think one of the reasons I like them, and I'm gonna jump around a bunch, kind of like you did with One Piece, but because
Mm.
one of the most recent things that happened in episode 4 was, and I cannot remember his name, but the really big dude who joins the wall, he kind of takes him under his
Oh,
wing in a way.
yeah, yeah, Samuel
And I
Tarly.
really kind of what?
Samuel Tarly.
Okay, yeah. So he takes him under his wing, and he even is like, "Hey guys, don't beat him up. Like, don't do this. Like, we're gonna be out for him." And it's you can tell it's because like that's what he's experienced. Like he got beat up,
Yeah.
and I think I really like that. Like Tyrion Lannister was there when this was happening because they kind of bonded in a way that I didn't really expect. Um, they're both outsiders. One's a dwarf and one's a
Mhm.
bastard, and they kind of bond over their similar the fact that they're similar and the fact that they're different than everyone else. And
The
that's
societal
kind of a
differences.
story that I didn't really expect to get out of Game of Thrones. I didn't know that a big part of his character was the fact that he was a dwarf. I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, it's Peter Dinklage. He's a great actor. They just picked him. The fact that he is a dwarf being such a big part of his character and that making him an
Yeah.
outsider. And the only reason he even mentions it when he's talking a little bit about himself is the fact that if he was a common person, he would have been thrown out and died. Like he would have just been thrown to the forest and
Yes.
died. It's only because he was born into a royal family or a respected family that he was even allowed to live.
Right.
And him and Jon Snow kind of bonding over that. And it's the same way. He's a bastard son. If he wasn't the son of such an important character in this world, he would have a much worse life than he does now.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you kind of see that in the way of the Butcher's Boy. It's a very one-off story. It's a very short off story.
Mhm.
We have the Butcher's Boy that's fighting with, I can't remember her name, the really
Arya.
young yeah, Arya Stark. You see them fighting, and then he dies. He gets run over by a horse, I believe, is kind of they kind of brush over it. But it's interesting in the way that they brush over it because it's not because they're trying to move the story along and they don't care. It's because that's just how he's a butcher's son. No one cares. We brush past the fact that he died, moving on.
Mhm.
And you can feel that in I guess the like environment of the world. You have the really important people, you have your people that no one cares about, you have kind of your middle ground, and you're kind of getting an idea of where the hierarchy is. Again, it
Yeah.
seems kind of obvious because it is, I shouldn't say a generic fantasy world, but it is a generic fantasy world in that way where you can kind of expect those things. But
Yeah,
it's it's
it the best way to explain Game of Thrones to somebody who's never seen it, at least in my perspective, has always been at least until later seasons. It was never a fantasy show, even though it's set in a fantasy realm. It's
mm,
a political thriller, or no, not social commentary, but it's a political thriller
I
set
mean,
within
to a
medieval
degree,
times.
it kind of is a social commentary in a way.
Mm,
And and we've talked about this before, where I hate when agendas are kind of shoved down your throat,
mhm,
but I love personal commentaries that
yeah,
tell stories and get into politics, but from a human perspective, because
mm,
that's what I want to see. Like I care about
yeah,
people and I love characters. And that's one of the reasons I fall in love with media so much is because it gives me a way to kind of reflect with I mean, I might look like a generic white dude, but, like, there's a lot about me that makes me very different. I'm not gonna get into
sure,
like, I've struggled with a lot of things my entire life, huge medical problems, mental health, things of that nature, and
sure,
this has always been a huge escapism for me through that, and in seeing characters that feel like outsiders in the form of Tyrion Lannister, Jon Snow, and I know I've talked mostly about them, but that's just because, like, they're kind of my favorite characters in a way that in Jon Snow, again, I kind of knew his character was a badass and people loved him, but Tyrion
mm,
Lannister feels so interesting because I mean we get this scene with Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister when they're on their way over to the wall and they're sitting down by the creek and it's such a like one-off scene, but it's like, oh, why do you read so much? And it's like because
yeah,
and this is when he talks about how he would have just been left out and he would have died, but he's like, I can't fight. Like I can't fight. I'm short. I can't do this. All I have is my brain. And that's
yeah,
what I train. And I feel like a lot of people can put themselves in that position. I mean, I'm not the most athletic person in the world, but I have my brains. Like I'm a computer scientist. That's what I use my abilities for. And you can
yeah,
kind of reflect it. And it doesn't have to be book smart. You can reflect, you can relate to that character in so many different ways. In any way. It's you can't do this, but you can do this. And it
right,
doesn't feel forced on where, oh, he's different. You have to like him because he's different. No, people freaking hate him. They hate him
yeah,
and you're telling that story of someone finding their way in the world of being unique, and I'm really interested to see where that character goes. um Another
yeah,
character, and this is on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I do know this character's story. I do know where it ends. I will admit. But that is Joffrey.
yeah,
I hate him. I feel like everyone hates him. He's annoying, but I will say I knew I was going to hate him going in because again, unfortunately, he's one of the characters he was so memed upon. And the only I will say the main reason I know this character goes is because I know that playing this character as it's such unfortunately a detrimental to his acting career and to his personal
yeah.
life.
He was never
Really
really able to play anything
unfortunately.
after. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Just because of how but I will say and this goes back to the conversation we had about Invincible. I hate his character. I hate his character, and I love the fact that I hate his character
Good.
because he's
Good.
so well written. He's so written in a way, kind of like with Rex in the beginning, where he's written in a way that you don't want to like him. I mean, you start off with seeing Rex that cheats on his girlfriend Adam Eve. With this, he's lying to the king to seek his own benefit, and you're just meant to hate him, but it makes sense because
Yeah.
again, you're talking about, you have the butcher's boy who's this, no one cares about him. He dies, he gets run over by a horse. And you have this guy who, we have a scene between him and his mom where, and his mom has a screwed up life. She's fucking her brother. She has a husband who doesn't love her and actively sleeps with other women all the time.
Yep.
It's just a fucked up family. So of course he's gonna end up being a dick. You literally have a scene where him and his mom are talking, and she's like, "You're my son. You're gonna be the future king. You can fuck whoever you want. You can kill whoever you want. You are my
Right.
boy." And it's like,
Yeah.
no wonder he's such a terrible person. And that's one of the things I love about Game of Thrones so far is every single character makes sense. You're not like, oh, I hate them because they're poorly written, or I hate them because they're terrible. You hate them because you're meant to hate them, but you
Yeah.
also understand why you hate them and why the way that they are.
Yeah. Game of Thrones has always been really good at, and I think this has always just been the show's like stride, is that it's not afraid to take its slower moments. Like this is not necessarily a spoiler, but it's also a spoiler at the same time. They have a lot of big fight action scenes, and they're epic. They're
Mhm.
spectacles to
Yeah,
behold. They are
yeah.
so good, but they are not as often as I think everybody thinks for a fantasy related show. It takes its time building to those moments, and where Game of Thrones really lives and brings this energy is within the small character moments. And funny
Yeah.
enough,
Oh yeah.
all of the small character moments, especially within season one, you will get back, like they pay it off later on. Like even if
Hmm.
there's like a prophecy in the show which never gets paid off, okay, that's a plot thing, like a plot change. I'm talking about like specific character moments that you will look at later
Yeah.
and go, ah, I see what you did there because they did this then and they did this then, like they interacted here, and it does such a really good job at it. And thank God you hate Joffrey, because if you did, that'd be horrible. And let me tell you,
Well,
it doesn't get better, as you
no,
know.
I know. I know it only gets worse. I know it only gets worse. Again, I unfortunately kind of, I don't know every character beat. Like I haven't obviously watched the whole series, so I don't know his character beat. I know where it ends. I know that type of stuff. But
Yeah.
and kind of going back to this, you brought up an interesting point in the sense of there's not a lot of battles. And that's where I didn't really, I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. I'm 4 hours into Game of Thrones, and there's barely been any action whatsoever. And again, you're watching an epic fantasy.
Mhm.
In 4 hours, you can watch like one and a half of the Lord of the Rings movies. And those movies have character and action, and they cram so much in. But this, in a again, I'm not trying to compare the two necessarily, but I use that because they're fantasy worlds and that type of thing.
Yeah.
You've got like basically no action. You've gotten like a decapitation, and the dog died, and the fight with Joffrey where he got bit by the dire wolf. Like, but that's really it. Like, you're really not getting all that much. But I
Yeah.
like that, and I shouldn't say I wasn't expecting it, but honestly, I there's a lot more heart to this show and a lot more character to this show than I really was anticipating, and I'm loving that about it.
And
Um,
there's one character specifically. You talk about hating characters. I won't say who the character is, just in case you like don't know who I'm referring to. If you do, you'll know who I'm hinting at. There's one character who you are going to absolutely, you're going to see a redemption arc, and it is the most beautiful thing ever. And I can say that's probably even more enough of it away, but he is probably my favorite character in the entire show, purely because of the arc that this character specifically goes on. Um, and
okay, I
so
don't I don't know what you're hinting at, so I'm gonna stop you
that's
there because I
good.
don't want to get any more
Yeah,
spoilers. But that's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But okay, I can talk about Game of Thrones forever, I can talk about One Piece forever, but we're like an hour and a half in and we haven't even talked about the main topic that we said we were going to talk about. So I'm going to use this as a segue. And I think that's one thing that, again, this is the first episode. We're figuring this out as we go.
Yeah.
We're going to need to figure out, because, dude, we could talk forever about this. There's definitely going to be episodes where we don't have topics. I know we tried to give this episode a topic. We're not going to get probably as into it as we wanted it to, just because of time. But
Yeah.
I'm enjoying these conversations, and I hope the people that are listening enjoy these conversations as well, because that's what this entire podcast is about. It's just two dudes who are interested in a lot of different things. Again, I talked about a manhwa, a web novel that I'm reading, and I'm watching Game of Thrones, and I'm watching Solo Leveling, I'm watching Invincible. We're fans of a lot of things, and I feel like a lot of podcasts out there are very one note. They're an anime podcast, they're a comic book podcast, and we want to kind of we're those nerds who love so many different things, and we're very broad nerds, and we're gonna expand again. Carson's expanding his horizons with anime. I'm expanding my horizons with Game of Thrones. That's not necessarily a genre, but it is a story that I probably wouldn't have watched. And that's kind of at the heart of this show, is we're nerds that are talking about things that are interesting to us and interesting to each other, but not just hyper focused on, oh, we're only going to talk about this or we're only going to talk about that. But I'm going to use that as a segue to talk about the biggest thing that has happened recently, or one of the biggest things. And I think, okay, so I know we said we're going to give a review of Captain America Brave New World. Let's pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Captain America Brave New World in a sense of how we're going to talk about all of this. And that's like, so let's preface this. I'm a huge Marvel fan. Carson's a Marvel fan. It's one of the things that we're both in agreement about. We're pretty much caught up on everything. I haven't seen the Netflix. That's like the main thing I haven't seen. I also and this is interesting with the new Captain America movie. I haven't watched the Incredible Hulk movie, specifically because I was boycotting it as long as I could, because I refused to believe that movie was canon. And now it is extraordinarily canon, so I need to go back and watch it. Unfortunately, I lost that protest, my silent protest of make that movie not canon. I lost it. But so we're both big Marvel fans. I'm a big comic book fan. You can't see behind me. I know it looks like I'm only anime. Again, I'm Star Wars anime. I'm everything. I have a bunch of comic books on my wall. I'm a comic book guy. I like comic books. My biggest prized possession is I have the first appearance of Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night 32. I'm a huge comic book guy. I know, Carson, you're not as into comic books, but you appreciate comic books, and I know you've read some.
I'm just doing this to House of M right over there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing this to set the stage. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the reason I'm saying all these things and kind of prefaced it with why we're starting this podcast is because we're fans. So we're not we're not your average fans. We both accept that. Like, we are beyond just your average moviegoer fan. But we're just genuine fans. We love these characters. We love these things. And I say all that to say, whenever I talk bad about something, again, I talked earlier about how I don't like this season's Invincible animation. That's a con. Or we're going to talk about things that I don't like in the new Captain America movie, or what they're doing with Marvel right now. I don't say that as a point of malice, and I know Carson can echo this. We don't say this as a point of malice. We say this as a point of, we love these things so much, and we care so deeply about these that we want them to succeed. And I'm not gonna directly quote one of our both favorite YouTubers, and honestly a huge inspiration for both of us on why we started this, is Koi Chandra. He brings up a lot whenever he talks about this, that he's just happy to see these things on screen. Now, we're both younger, so we didn't necessarily grow up in the age where being nerds wasn't as cool. However, when we were both growing up, being nerds wasn't as cool. Like, again, we kind of started a little bit like when it started to get cool, but there still was a point where it wasn't the thing. Like, Marvel movies were barely getting released. Like, Star Wars was the only like super nerdy kind of socially acceptable thing, but not really. Like, I went to Star Wars Celebration years and years and years ago, and I've been to Star Wars Celebration more recently, and the difference is huge in the terms of just Star Wars, and that's been popular forever. So all that being said, I'll start off with my thoughts on kind of so I'll talk about a little bit about Brave New World, and then transition into, again, our thoughts about the Marvel Universe as a whole, or the MCU. I enjoyed Brave New World. Controversial opinion. I did not hate it. like a lot of people did out there. I will say, and me and Carson, this is why I don't want to focus too much on our review because it will feel a little forced because admittedly, me and Carson have already talked about Brave New World. We both saw it the same day. We talked about it
Yeah.
afterwards, but so we've already covered a lot of this, and I don't want to force that conversation, but I enjoyed Brave New World for the story that it told. I just was not a big fan of the execution of it, and I think that's both of our biggest problems. And I don't want to put words in Carson's mouth, so I'll let him talk for himself here in a second. But but I know I've been talking forever, so I'll let you talk here in a second. But I'm going to preface this and then kick it off to you. One of the biggest problems that I have in the Marvel universe is not the stories that they're telling. It's more along the lines of the execution. I feel like this movie is a perfect example of they had a really good story to tell. It just felt rushed in a way that I did not like. I know people complain about long movies all the time, and oh, why did this movie have to be so long? Like we need to cut this down. And there was definitely some unnecessary stuff in this movie that they could have cut out, but there was a lot of things that I felt like they needed to add to this movie. And I feel like it's a big thing with a lot of what's going on in the MCU right now. Is
Yeah.
they're chopping their with reshoots and things, they're chopping their products together in a
Yep.
way that just doesn't feel as natural as it used to. And
Yes.
I hope we can get back to that. And we'll continue to talk about this, but I just want to kick it off to Carson because I've been talking for so long.
Well, no, with Brave New World specifically, you pretty much said it all. The reshoots were the biggest hindrance to that movie. And what's funny is you look at this movie, you look at the reshoots, and you look at everything that they did to basically throw this movie together, and it's still not as bad as you think it was going to be. Like
Mm,
I don't think so at all. Um, I think the biggest thing this movie specifically did for me, without going too much into it, is that it sold me on who Anthony Mackie as Captain America is. Like I think the biggest thing walking out of Falcon and Winter Soldier was, oh, Falcon's Captain America. Okay,
yeah.
I don't really agree with that, but okay. And with Brave New World, I watched it and went, yes, I actually want to see Anthony Mackie leading the Avengers. I believe that he could lead the Avengers. Like that's the biggest thing this movie did. And I also say that with this movie specifically, nobody phoned in a performance. Everybody did
No,
show up. Like
no,
everybody
absolutely.
was on their A game. Harrison Ford specifically was the biggest like surprise for me with that, because you look at Force Awakens and he clearly phoned in a performance. He did not
Yeah.
care. And you
Yeah.
look at this and you go, he actually
Unfortunately, as a
tried.
huge Star Wars fan. Yeah.
But he actually tried. He tried here, and he did a great job with it. And what everybody's given, it's actually good. And I can see the plot they're going for. I also give it that too. The plot itself is enjoyable. It's fun. I think the setup to get to the plot is where it was rough the most. Um, like specifically with the character of Sidewinder, who originally I'm pretty sure was supposed to be played by Seth Rollins, and that was where the majority of reshoots came from, was they changed it to Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon and Gus Fring
Yeah.
in
Amazing
Star Wars
actor. And
universe
I
and Breaking
feel like
Bad.
with the limited screen time he did do a really good, and I hope they bring him back because I'm really curious to see where he can take admittedly in the comic books, kind of side character.
Well, that's who he is. He is a side character. He's a street level figure for Anthony Mackie's Captain America.
Hmm.
In a lot of ways, I would compare Sidewinder to being Anthony Mackie's Red Skull. In a lot of ways, that's what I would
Yeah.
compare him as.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting. I never thought about, yeah.
I wouldn't I would not say that they're done with Giancarlo Esposito, because they're not going to cast him in and then not do anything else with him. I just don't think we're going to see him in anything anytime soon. But I do also think this is a pre-Serpent Society Sidewinder. So I do think we'll get a Serpent Society at some point. We will get
It
the
No, no,
go
no,
for it.
continue because I have something to say that, but yeah, continue. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I do think that this is a pre-Serpent Society Sidewinder, so they're going to do more with him in that regard. Uh, but also the writing of Brave New World, I think that's specifically where it lacked a lot. And again, that might have just been because it got lost in reshoots. But as a story perspective of it being Anthony Mackie's goal is to yes, save the world, but also to clear the name of a friend who was wrongly accused of a crime. I think is a very Captain America plot. I think that
Yeah.
it works for this story. And Harrison Ford's character, I like the idea of he's trying to be a new man for his daughter. Like, and it's not revealed at first that that's the whole point of it, but that's genuinely what he's trying to do. He's trying to change to be a better person so he can be with his daughter again. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a great choice and a great idea. But like you said, I think it's just execution. And now how this pertains to the overarching MCU.
Well, and
Uh,
before you get into that, I do want to make
yeah,
one last comment
go ahead.
about Brave New World, because you brought up about how this is a pre-Serpent Society Sidewinder. It is and it isn't, because they do mention the Serpent Society, and the like he is a part of the Serpent Society. That is the gang that you see him in originally. But
Right.
and this I wanted to add this very small note beforehand, because it kind of ties into, and I'll kick it back to you, because it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about. Is this movie was originally supposed to be a Serpent Society movie.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be like Giancarlo Esposito's character as Sidewinder was supposed to be the big bad. This entire story was supposed to be about that, and through reshoots and rewrites and things like that, they've changed the story so
Yeah.
much that it no longer is that. It is a big epic adamant against for adamantium, things of that nature. And that's kind of where I'm going to transition back to you and get your thoughts on the current state of the MCU, because I think a big driving factor for why they rewrote this movie is because they were trying to plug plot holes that I don't think they needed to plug with this movie specifically, and that's the adamantium and Eternals. And it kind of, again, it ties into the bigger MCU. Is there's so many different plots going on right now, and in the comic books it makes sense. Like, you always have so
Yes.
many different things, but as movies, it's unfortunately, for me, I don't care as much, because I'm a comic book fan. I like these things, but
Mm,
they're catering these movies to the general audience. So they have to change things a little bit, and that is,
right.
it's harder to tell so many different stories all at once. So they're trying to wrap up the adamantium story in a Captain America movie, and it felt a little forced to the reshoots.
Yeah.
And I'll kick it back to you, because you were about to go into the general state of the MCU, but like that again, that kind of ties into what we're talking about, in the sense of like, yes, this does feel like a pre-Serpent Society Sidewinder, but it wasn't supposed to be. And that
Yeah.
it does sucks. I wanted to see what they were going to do with the Serpent Society, which is kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, a group that no one's ever heard of. It's a villain group that no one cares about. Even in the comic books, they're a big deal, but they're not. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Um, the current state of the MCU, people categorize it into one thing, or sorry, not one thing, to two different things. Marvel's back or Marvel's dead. There's nothing in between. It's either that or that. I'm gonna
yeah,
break that rule and say that it is in between because it's not dead or alive. Um, no, Marvel's not back. I think it could be. I think the Marvel's first mistake, and I don't know if this was a Marvel thing, a Kevin Feige thing, or a Disney thing, but they overproduced and mass produced way too many things. They tried to do so much within a short span of time, and I'm pretty sure it was within 3 years. They already did what they did. Like they had produced so much content within 3 years of what they had done in what is it 10,
10, yeah,
11. They overdid it, and because they overdid it, they had less people to work on visual effects, less people to work on writings. Everybody is going all over the place, being thrown in every which way, trying to make this project work, while at the same time, hey, we're also going to work on this project and keep setting it up. The MCU has always had that. They've always set up another project, and they've always had that interconnectedness within its films. But two things with that: one, when you do not have a clear road as to where you're heading, or if you're not giving your audience enough of an idea as to where you're going, it makes everybody lose focus. It makes everybody feel like they're watching. It makes first off, it makes it harder to rewatch any of this stuff, and it makes it hard to sit down for the next thing. Because why
hmm,
sit down for something that when you are being like when you are prepared to uh, uh, have this interconnected world, watch a thing that is just the most disconnected thing. I think that was people's biggest problem with Eternals, which personally I liked Eternals. I am one of the only people who says that. I have another friend who says that he likes it.
you have a second right here with the two
I,
people that like Eternals. I should
um,
say don't hate Eternals as much as everyone else does.
that's probably I do see the problems with it and whatnot, but like uh, uh Eternals was very different, but it also until Brave New World came out, it had nothing to do with anything
Yeah,
that
it was a very
had
standoff move.
yes. And even though it was a standoff movie, it had the biggest implications with a friggin' celestial busting out of the planet, and nobody addresses it. Up until Brave New
Yeah.
World, it was literally a She-Hulk episode that had a small thing in like a little YouTube kernel. Hey guys, there's this little celestial popping out of the island. Let's discuss that. Like it was the
Yeah.
most random place to put it, and they just never addressed it for like 4 years. And that's my point of saying is they didn't have a clear roadmap as to what story they wanted to tell. Or at least if they did, we'll get into that. They threw it out the window. And I think that's what happened with
Yeah.
Kang. That's specifically
It
what
is.
happened with Kang. Jonathan Majors
Yeah.
got canceled. They fired him. And I do think Doom was always going to be a part of Secret Wars and whatnot. I do think Doom was always going to be a part of the story. I don't think that actually
Mhm.
changed. I think how soon they brought him in, and especially how they wanted to make him the
Oh,
big
yeah.
bad, that is what changed.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the drastic change was. And so look, I the best way to say it, and also because I want to talk about this more in later videos, especially as more content comes out, like Daredevil Born Again, Thunderbolts, which is looking very
Mhm.
promising.
Yeah.
I don't think Marvel's dead. I think it's also very hard for somebody
No.
like me to say
No.
that it is going to be dead. Um,
We don't want to admit it if it is. Like,
right. I don't think it's dead. I think they've had a lot of missteps. I think they have a lot of course correction to do. But I think if my thing is if they stick the landing with the Avengers films, I think they have a strong chance of coming back, and we'll just chalk off this whole 5, 7, 6 years, 7 years, however long these phases are, as a bad fever dream.
God, I don't know how long no, it's been like 5, I think. Endgame was right before it was 2019. Endgame was 2019.
Mm.
And so it's been it's been
COVID.
6 years since Endgame.
Yeah, because
Because it was
COVID
before COVID.
happened.
Endgame was pre-COVID. It was 2019. I believe it was
Yeah.
2019. Because I don't think it came out the same year as the pandemic in 2020. So I'm pretty sure it was
No,
2019 was Endgame.
everything got delayed. WandaVision was supposed to
Yeah,
come
yeah,
out in
yeah, yeah.
2020. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was
Correct.
supposed
So
to come out
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
2020, and then it got delayed. That's
Correct. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and so to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, I have a slightly different perspective. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying.
Mm.
I think the biggest problem that I see with the current state of the MCU, and this is gonna sound pretentious, and I don't want it to. Again, you have to understand, like I'm a fan of this. I enjoy this,
Sure.
but I feel like unfortunately my biggest problem is it felt like in the beginning, back when they made Iron Man, they were telling it was a comic. It wasn't a comic book story, but it was for the fans of the material.
Mm.
Right now, it kind of feels like in a way they're trying to tell the stories to the mainstream. And I
Yeah.
get it. It's big movie. You want to make your money, like get your bag, Marvel, like whatever. But I feel like what made Marvel so special is the fact that they did the weird character that Guardians of the Galaxy, even comic book fans didn't really know about Guardians of the
Right.
Galaxy before Guardians of the Galaxy came out. And now Guardians of the Galaxy is admittedly one of, if not the best trilogy in Marvel, in the
Right.
MCU. And they told the story they wanted to tell. And right now, at least personally, I feel like, and it's hard to call it to instances of this. I think it's more of just a general feeling. And again, it could just be me reading into it. It could just be me being a little bit pretentious. I feel like they've lost that in a way that they're trying to cater more to the mainstream audience. Because here's the thing, and the reason why I say it is because one of the things you brought up is they're releasing so much content.
Yeah.
That's what superheroes are, and that's what comic books are. There are so many Marvel comic books that release every single month. There's so many of them that tell so many different stories. And as comic fans love that. That's why they get into
Mm.
comic books, because you can pick and choose and piecemeal. I
Right.
think and I guess this would be a specific instance of where I feel like they're catering more to the general audience is in comic books. They have their big events. They have their like end game style events. They have their Secret Wars. They have their House of M's where everyone comes together. But all of their individual stories feel very standoffish. They feel very standalone to a degree. You have some crossover,
Yeah.
but every single like volume of Spider-Man isn't, oh, Doctor Strange is coming in and it's a world-ending
Right.
threat. You'll have, and that's one of the reasons why I love Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man so much. It is probably the best thing that Marvel has made in the past few years.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't say the best. It's one of. They've like Loki's been really good, Deadpool's been really good, but like it is stands in a league of its own in a
Right.
way that it is telling a it lives up to the name of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, but it's standalone. And this kind of gets to my point of where they're catering to the mainstream audience. Is the mainstream audience, their brain doesn't work like that. When they see
Sure.
Marvel, they expect, oh, why aren't we hearing about that giant celestial? Why aren't we
Yeah.
hearing about this? They feel like it has to tie all together. So that's why you get a Captain America story that isn't a Captain America story. It's a wrap up the original Incredible Hulk. Like, we haven't talked about that. This is a Captain America story, but it's also, unfortunately, a wrap up to the Incredible Hulk movie that I wish it kind of wasn't in a way, because it takes
Yeah.
away from the Captain America story. And again, you do get that in the comic books. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this isn't
Right.
a problem with the comic books, but it is a way, an area that I see the original Marvel universe. All of their trilogies felt so standalone.
Yeah.
Like in the Iron Man movies, it was Iron Man. In the Captain America movies, other than Civil War, it was Captain America. In Thor, it
Sure.
was Thor, other than Ragnarok, where you bring in the Hulk. But those, and I bring those up, Civil War is a big event. That was less of a
Yeah.
Captain America movie and more of a big event. Yes. I wish it was just
Yeah.
called Civil War and not necessarily Captain America Civil War, because in the comic books it is just Civil War.
Right.
But I think a perfect example of what I'm talking about is in a story that is told that ties things together but doesn't, is Thor Ragnarok. I know that movie has a lot of it's not
Mm,
the most perfect movie in the world.
yeah.
I love that movie. I think it's a phenomenal movie.
Oh, I think it's
Um,
great.
but
Yeah.
you tie in the Hulk story all the way from the back of the original Avengers when he flew off into space.
Yeah.
Um, and you, or it wasn't the original Avengers that told that story. It was Age of Ultron, right? Was when he flew off, or
Yes.
when was
Age of
it that he
Ultron's
flew
funny. No, no,
off?
Age of
Yeah,
Ultron's when he flew off.
yeah, it's when he flies off, and then you're telling a Thor and Hulk story, but it still feels like a Thor story, but you also have a Hulk story that makes sense. And that's, again,
Yeah.
that's a perfect example of a comic book style story where you're tying it together, but you're not. It's still a standalone story, but it's not.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Captain America Brave New World really pulled that off in a way that a Thor Ragnarok
Yeah.
does, in terms of telling two characters' stories
Yeah.
in a way that it doesn't have to wrap up the giant world. It is a Thor story with Hulk in it that has a Hulk
Mm,
story in it.
yeah.
And I feel like that's, again, you're losing me in the sense of, and again, I'm gonna watch everything. I'm gonna love everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so
Oh,
happy to just
absolutely.
get these. But I feel like for me, that's one of the biggest areas where stop catering. If I had one message, and they're not gonna listen, even if they were listening to this, it's a money thing, it's a politics thing. But
Yeah.
go back to what made Marvel so special in the beginning, in the sense of, you're telling character stories, you're telling individual stories.
Mm,
Not everything has to end the world. Not everything has to be the biggest thing since sliced
yeah.
bread. I mean, we shit on Black Widow a lot, but like Black Widow, I feel like Black Widow had a really good story that just kind of wasn't executed the best. It had some bad CGI, had some not
Yeah.
as great pacing,
Yeah.
but it really goes back to what made Marvel special. That it was a Black Widow story. Yes, it had some big repercussions, but it really was a Black Widow story.
Mm,
I want to get back to that in a way of, you're telling all these individual stories that eventually tie together, but they don't have to tie together
yeah.
every single time.
No. No. And again, I mean, honestly, that is something I do appreciate about something like Brave New World in some sense, is that it didn't have an end the world story. It was like, yes, every superhero movie in some sense, it's the end of the world in some whatever sense because it's a villain or whatever. This film didn't really have like a this is going to end the world. It was the leader
Yeah, there's no
manipulating
giant laser beam
people.
shooting into the sky.
Right. There's no infinity stones that people are going after. It's the leader
Mhm.
basically trying to turn the countries against each other, and it's him getting back at Ross. That is as simple as it gets. It's a revenge story. That's pretty much it at its essence, and that's why the ending of the movie is Red Hulk and Captain America. Like that. No, nobody's saying that there's a big alien hole in the space in this hole in the sky with aliens coming through and whatnot. No, it's Red Hulk and Captain America fighting. That is about as
Yeah.
simple as it can get, and that is something I do appreciate about it, is that it does bring back itself back to that, like the feeling of what
Hmm.
classic Marvel was. That's actually what I remember. I don't remember if I thought it first or if somebody else had thought it first, but when they said it, it just clicked with me. It feels like classic Marvel, and I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. Um, and again, as messy as it is, as not perfect as it is, uh, I do feel like it is a classic, and in some ways, it is a step in the right direction, no matter how messy it genuinely was.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's basically my thoughts on the MCU right now. Again, as more things come out, ideas will change, things will change, and I still love it to death. I'm gonna be there opening day, maybe even as like a pre-showing to all these films, just because of how much I love it. I
Oh
love
yeah.
watching the
Oh
next
yeah.
thing. As I said, I'm a big fan of Daredevil, and I've already watched the 2 episodes of Born Again, which are phenomenal. They're so good. They did everything right, bringing that world back. Um, but we've talked a lot about the future of the MCU. So I guess my question in a segueing comment, what are some projects up and coming that you're excited about? Not just the MCU. This could be anything.
Yeah, no. So I'm gonna kind of wrap up my thoughts on the MCU and then get into that a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
because they
yeah,
kind of tie together in a way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so wrapping up the conversation about the MCU from my perspective, again, I know I've talked ad nauseum about this, but and I guess again, this is twofold in the sense of what I'm excited for. I really like the way that DC is doing it. We have gotten like
Yeah.
just one thing, the Creature
Yeah.
Commandos. I've watched Creature Commandos. I don't think you have. I was a big fan. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was good, interesting way to kick off the DCU. But what I mean by that is what Marvel kind of bit themselves in the butt with is they announced way too much at once and then had to kind of backpedal on it.
Yeah.
DC, in a way, is they're being kind of honest in the sense of they have announced a lot. Like I don't know if you've seen, like they've announced a
Mhm.
rated R gritty swamp thing that's coming out. They've
Yeah.
announced like I'm really excited for that.
Mhm.
Um, but they're honest. They're like, hey, we're announcing this, but it's really early. Like it's super, super early. We don't even have a cast yet. We're just in the writing phase. I feel like
Right.
Marvel isn't upfront about that. They'll be like, this is our slate for the next 10 years. And then they're like, oh crap,
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors got arrested.
They make
Like
promises
I
that they can't keep. That's the issue.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm curious because I'm really excited for the way that the DC I'm super excited for the new Superman movie. Really curious to
Mhm.
see where that goes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see how it pays off because if it pays off, I hope Marvel takes a note out of DC's book in the way of how to do things going forward. And I think they kind of already are. I think they've kind of realized their error in their ways of announcing. We all love announcements. I'm one of those people refreshing Twitter for D23, waiting for everything to be announced. But at the same time, I hope that they are a little bit slower. Um, and I think that's another thing again that they've kind of faults. They're having to change their plans a little too
Yeah.
publicly. Because again, if they hadn't announced all these things, they could have changed things in a way that we never would have known. And it would have
Right.
been so much smoother. Now we know, and it kind of takes the wind out of our sails and our
Mhm.
excitement for some of these things. But yeah, that's just to wrap up my thoughts on the DCU. But what am I excited for? God, the next episode of Solo Leveling comes out
Yeah.
tomorrow. We'll talk about it next week. I'm so excited. It's gonna be a really big battle. I'm really interested to see where it goes. Next episode of Invincible. I remembered his name. It's
Right.
Conquest. We'll get to see where that story takes us. More excited for reading more Omniscient readers. Viewpoint. Really curious to see where that story
Yeah.
takes me. I'm really and it is like farther off, but like, I'm really excited for Fantastic Four. I think that's my
Yeah.
right now where it stands. That is
Yeah.
probably my most anticipated thing of the year that's still left. And I know we're early in the year. There's gonna be more things announced. There's gonna be more
Right.
things. Like if I had to think about it, I'd say the it's the new Superman movie. And I'm not even the biggest Superman fan, admittedly. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
love
Oh
Superman.
yeah.
Um,
It's fine.
just because I feel like he's I love Invincible because it tells a Superman style story in a completely different way that just isn't just some OP guy. I
Sure.
trust James Gunn and I think he's going to be able to get a
It's
lot
James Gunn.
more of that.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that. Um I'm excited to watch more Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Um,
as you should.
that's one thing I'm really excited for. I don't think there's a lot of things I want to start. I don't think there's going to be much else that I start. There might be a few other things. There's a few things that I've started that I want to get back to. One of them is that time I got reincarnated as a slime. It's an anime. It's a really weird name.
Mm,
I might watch a few episodes of that this week just
sure.
because it's a really good story. If I watch it, I'll talk about it next week, and I'll kind of do what I did with Soul Leveling, where I give kind of like what I've done with a few things, like give a little bit of an idea so that you know what that is. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm excited for. What about you? What are you excited for this upcoming week?
I mean, obviously, One Piece. I'm excited to continue down that
Yeah,
road, down the rabbit hole, down
which
that journey.
I'm so glad to
Uh,
hear you say those words.
I'm also excited for Born Again. Again, I we'll talk
Mhm.
about that later as you get down the road of Daredevil more, and I think we'll talk more about that once the entire show's out and it's been entirely released. We'll get into it. We'll break it down. At least my thoughts about it. Um, but I'm excited for Born Again. I'm very excited for Last of Us. Uh,
Okay, okay, yeah, I
so
can tell by your shirt. Very, very.
very Last of Us Halloween Horror Nights. I actually got
Mhm.
a fun story about the shirt. It's an off. It's a kind of a special shirt because this is not supposed to be a thing. They messed up the printing when they gave it to me, and so
Oh, okay. I
it is
actually really liked that. I thought it
it's
was
the
interesting. I
It's
didn't know
the
that wasn't on
only
purpose.
it's the only HHN shirt that I've ever owned that they messed up the printing, but I just think it's cool. I know it's probably a really stupid thing to say it's cool, but whatever.
No, that's
But I'm excited.
cool. That
I'm
is.
excited for season 2. I am probably one of the few people who enjoyed playing the second game. Uh, obviously, there's some big things and there's some things that people hate. Um,
Yes.
you know, 9 iron, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Golfing, and that's all I'll say about that. But I'm excited to see where what they adapt from the game and bring into the show. I know they said specifically game 2 was going to take place over the course of, I think, 2 seasons.
I think
um
I heard something similar. Yeah.
either 2 or 3, I couldn't remember what it was, but I'm excited to see where they go with that. Like you said, Fantastic Four. I'm really excited for Thunderbolts, though, specifically. I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
that
Yeah.
story is it's Marvel's Suicide Squad at its core. And I think
Hmm.
that I I love the Suicide Squad stories. I love the films that came out. I have read a few of the comics regarding Suicide Squad. Um, so I'm really excited to see what Marvel does with that type of theme. And it's also, I think, the unique thing about that film is that they're taking characters that we've already seen before. We have some sort of attachment to them, and they're not the heroes. They're just people who are in
Yeah.
helping. That's pretty much it. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that get brought to life. Like I said, Fantastic Four, Superman, but you already discussed that. It's James Gunn. I trust him with my entire heart. He's gonna do it justice. He's gonna give DC some good films for once, because
Yeah.
they've been in a pretty rough situation, to say the least. Uh, and then I'm also excited for the Walking Dead shows that are coming out later this year.
Oh, I didn't
Because
know there was more Walking Dead coming out this year.
yeah. Well, after the main show ended, they split off and did some spin-off shows. They've had 4 since the show ended, I believe, and so they have another season of one of their spin-offs coming out this year, which the shows are fun, but I've been down the rabbit hole of Walking Dead for so long that I got to keep watching now. I can't give up. Uh, so I'm excited to see that. Um, but no, I mean, dude, that pretty much sums it up. I've got a lot to look forward to for the future.
Yeah.
Again excited to watch One Piece. I know you're excited to watch Game of Thrones. Uh, but yeah, any final remarks? Final regards?
I I just have one. And that's thank you for anyone and no one for listening. I'm very excited to see where this takes us. This was the
Mm,
first episode of whether there's 0 people listening or a million people listening. We're using this as an outlet. Again, there's a bunch of different podcasts that you
yeah,
can listen to. This is just 2 dudes talking about what they love, and
yeah,
it might not be the most unique thing, but again, I hope we can give you an interesting
Mm,
perspective from our thoughts.
yeah,
The show's gonna evolve, the show's gonna change, we're gonna change. But I'm excited to go on whatever this journey looks like.
yeah.
That's all I'll say.
I can't wait for us to have a conversation in a week and go, oh my gosh, Carson, we've got 30 views, and I'll go, no, I just clicked on the video 30 times. I just wanted to I just wanted to give us a little
Carson,
bit of
that's your mom. Your
I
mom
wanted
watched the episode.
to, and funny enough, my mom literally mentioned earlier, like, should I subscribe to this? I go, if you want to, you
My mom
can.
doesn't even know about this, and I'm gonna keep it that way.
But anyway, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our first ever episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. And hey, if you like what you saw, if you like what you heard, give us a like, give us a follow, and comment down below wherever you're watching this from. You can find us at Nerdy Nimrods on all social media platforms and podcast hosting platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Podcasts. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Carson, aka Juggernaut, with my very good friend
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
and we thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week, and remember, stay nerdy.